Everyone has heard of the Bermuda Triangle, right? That sinister place full of mysteries, famous for stories of ships and planes that disappeared without a trace. But what about the Afar Triangle? Have you ever heard of it? If I told you that this place was as sinister and deadly as the Bermuda Triangle, would you believe me? We're talking about a region with extreme heat, bubbling lava lakes, pools of sulphur, and temperatures that exceed 60 degrees in the shade, a real hell on Earth. But the most impressive thing is that, against all odds, there is life here. And this extreme life has piqued the interest of none other than NASA. Where is this place? Who are the beings that defy the most hostile conditions? And what is NASA's interest in this surreal environment? You'll find out all this and much more on another journey through this bello mundo. Number 1. Location and geographical data. Let's explore the Afar Triangle, a region that looks like something out of a movie. Located in East Africa, between Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the Republic of Djibouti, this area is where 3 tectonic plates are in a slow divorce, moving apart at a rate of 1 to 2 centimeters per year. And this geological movement is far from discrete. The intense activity under the Earth's crust puts so much pressure that the surface cracks and transforms. Fissures, volcanoes, escarpments, faults, fumaroles, and hot springs spring up as if they were in a special effects show. And if you're looking at the image captured by NASA right now, you'd think you were looking at a frozen landscape, wouldn't you? But here, appearances are deceiving. There's no ice here. In fact, magma runs wild just below the surface, feeding no less than 12 active volcanoes. And earthquakes are almost part of the basic package in this region. And speaking of extreme places in the Afar region, there's Lake Assal in the Republic of Djibouti, the lowest point on the entire African continent, at an incredible 155 meters below sea level. This lake is a real gem. Due to its low altitude, the Red Sea has invaded the area several times in the past, leaving salt deposits that are still exploited today by local merchants. With an average depth of 7.5 meters and some areas over 20 meters, Lake Assal stretches 10 kilometers long and 7 wide. In a hot desert setting, it reaches an incredible 52 degrees Celsius in summer, practically a natural sauna. The salinity is also striking, 10 times that of the sea. For all these reasons, it is considered a national treasure and is in a protected area. They are even considering including the lake on the UNESCO Heritage List. But as impressive as Lake Assal is, it doesn't come close to our star today, the Danakil Depression, one of the most remote and challenging regions in the world, located in Ethiopia. That's where we're heading now. Number 2. Danakil Depression. This is without a doubt one of the most extreme and fascinating places you can imagine. Located where the African and Arabian tectonic plates meet, this area is basically a giant geological laboratory where the Earth never stands still. Between the Red Sea and the African Rift Valley, the region attracts scientists, adventurers, and curious people from all over the world. When you step foot here, it's as if you've stepped into a science fiction setting. Remember that movie called Total Recall from the future that was a sensation in the 1990s and featured Arnold Schwarzenegger on Mars? That's right. The scenery here is very reminiscent of other planets. The Danakil Depression is famous, or depending on your point of view, infamous, for its climatic conditions that defy anyone. We're talking about an annual average that ranges from 35 to 45 degrees Celsius, with peaks that exceed 50 degrees. It's hot enough to make even the desert seem refreshing. And with hardly any rain falling here, the environment is as dry as you'd expect, creating an arid and fascinating landscape. But it is precisely this extreme heat that makes this region so unique. The high temperatures and geological activity provide phenomena that can't be found anywhere else. And speaking of geological spectacles, we can't fail to mention one of the region's stars, the Erta Ale Volcano. Number 3. The Erta Ale Volcano. Known as the gateway to hell by the locals, the Erta Ale Volcano lives up to its nickname. Imagine a mountain with a crater that looks like a pool of fire. That's exactly what you'll find here. Its name, which means smoking mountain, already gives you a hint of what's to come. In the center of the crater, a boiling lake of lava spews sulphurous gases into the air, creating a spectacle that seems to come straight from the depths of the planet. And it's not just today that it impresses. The lava lake has been active for over 100 years, something that fascinates scientists and attracts adventurers from all over the world. Number 4. Karum Salt Lake. Another place not to be missed on our tour is Lake Karum, also known as Lake Asale. Imagine a huge salt flat that stretches as far as the eye can see, forming a dazzling white landscape under the blazing sun. It's a scene that looks edited, but the reality here is as extreme as it is fascinating. For centuries, these salt flats were mined by the Afar people. And by the way, we'll tell you more about them in a moment, because their history is one of the most impressive. Just to give you an idea, these people had a peculiar reception policy, to say the least. Unwanted intruders. They would lose their testicles as a welcome card. But as we continued on our way and maintained our physical integrity, we arrived at another surreal attraction, the region's famous second gateway to hell, the Dallol area. Number 5. Dallol. Why is Dallol called the gateway to hell? Well, there are plenty of reasons. This place is so extreme that any description of a literary hell begins to make sense. Even the apostles Matthew and Luke's words about burning flames and unquenchable thirst seem to fit perfectly here. Dallol, located in the Danakil Depression, is the hottest inhabited place on Earth, with an average summer temperature that easily exceeds 46 degrees Celsius. And that's in the shade. Around midday in June, you can literally feel the air burning around you. Even without an active volcano, the heat here would be torture. Speaking of volcanoes, the Dallol volcano had its last significant eruption in 1926, leaving behind a crater that filled with acidic water thanks to underground geothermal activities. The result was a surreal landscape with vibrant colors ranging from white to yellow and red, tinged by minerals such as sulphur and potassium. It's an explosion of colors and an unpleasant smell, reminiscent of rotten eggs. When Mussolini annexed Ethiopia in 1935, the Italians were interested in this wealth of sulphur. Today, what remains is a ghost town, with Italian ruins amidst soil that has turned yellow from the chemical element. The scenery becomes even more unbelievable near the volcano, with geysers spewing out underground water heated by the magma, resulting in shallow wells with colors ranging from green to orange due to the variations in oxidation of the dissolved iron. And although it seems like we're talking about an alien planet, there is life here, but only life that defies the limits, and it's this life that has intrigued even NASA, and we'll talk about it later. With a negative pH, i.e., less than 0, the water wells on Dallol are more acidic than even a car battery. And to complete the hellish scenario, we are 125 meters below sea level, with a volcanic crater 30 meters in diameter that recalls the last great eruption. In addition, the fumaroles, emissions of steam and volcanic gases, add a sense of movement and mysticism to the place. Local legend links Dallol to the Gate of Hell, an echo inspired by the ancient Book of Enoch, which speaks of an abyss that would engulf the earth in fire. No wonder Dallol means decay in the language of the Afar tribe, a name that reflects the beauty and severity of this stunning and challenging place. Do you now understand why it is known as the region's second gateway to hell? Number 6. The Afar. Now it's time to meet the legendary Afar, who are also known as the Danakil, obviously a direct reference to the region they live in and have called home for centuries, even though it's one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. After all, when your home is nicknamed the gateway to hell and the land of death, you already know we're not talking about just any place. The Afar mainly inhabit northeastern Ethiopia, as well as parts of Eritrea and Djibouti, and are known as one of the most traditional nomadic groups in the Horn of Africa, with an estimated population of around 2 million people. They lead a life of pastoralism, tending herds of camels, goats, sheep, and cattle, and moving according to the seasons in search of water and pasture. It's not easy to survive out here, but they do it masterfully. Organized into clans with the traditional hierarchical structure, the Afar have local leaders who settle disputes and keep the community together. And it's not just animals they deal with. They are also masters of collecting salt from the depression. For centuries, Afar miners have traveled long distances, usually in camel caravans, to extract slabs of salt from around Lake Afar. Known as white gold, salt was used as currency in Ethiopia until the 20th century. The process is exhausting. The miners spend hours or even days on their journey, extracting the salt by hand and cutting it into slabs of around 3 kilos. They then load everything onto camels, which travel in groups guided by shepherds during the long trek across the desert. Throughout the 20th century, the region attracted the interest of outside investors, such as Europeans, Indians, and Americans, who tried to profit from the area's mineral wealth. However, most of these mines have been abandoned. In other words, it's not a place for everyone. But as well as shepherds and miners, they're good fighters. Number 7. Cruel warriors. Historically, the Afar have a reputation for being fierce warriors and ruthless protectors of their land and traditions. Before the Italian occupation during the Second World War, intruders who dared to cross their domain without permission were met with an unwelcoming reception committee. And this is where the stories about mutilation, such as cutting off the testicles of enemies, came into play. This kind of cruel marking had a clear objective: to protect their lands at all costs, and to send a very direct message to anyone who thought of challenging their authority. The arrival of the Italians during the military occupation profoundly changed the dynamics of the region. They tried to control the Afar, weakening their cultural practices and local power structure. Traditions, including the tribal justice system, were seen by the colonizers as threats that needed to be tamed. This period changed the way the Afar dealt with intruders and restructured power relations in the region. Today, practices like these no longer take place. However, a radical group known as the Afar Revolutionary Democratic Unity Front, known by its abbreviation, RDUF, is still active. This organization emerged with the aim of defending the interests of the Afar people and fighting against the domination of external forces in their lands. Its methods and beliefs, however, have been controversial. In January 12, an incident drew international attention when a group of European tourists were attacked in the region of the Erta Ale Volcano. The attack resulted in the death of 5 tourists, with 2 being taken hostage and 7 others injured. Since then, it has been recommended that tourists hire armed guides to visit this region, with safety being an important issue. Number 8. Science Spawn. Remember how we mentioned that there are life forms that defy comprehension here? Well, we're talking about extremorphal microorganisms, the tiny creatures that adapt and thrive in conditions of extreme heat, acidity, and salinity. I know this name is complicated, but extremophile microorganisms are nothing more and nothing less than microscopic organisms such as bacteria and archaea that live in extreme conditions that would be lethal to most other forms of life. The term extremophile comes from the Greek and means lover of the extreme. These beings are found in environments with very high or very low temperatures, in places with extreme acidity, high salinity, or intense radiation, such as hot springs, acidic waters, extremely salty lakes, polar ice caps, and even areas with nuclear radiation. And as you might expect, if there is this kind of life, there are obviously scientists there. Scientists from all over the world consider this place to be a veritable storehouse of possibilities. The continuous volcanic activity creates a visual spectacle, it's true, but it's also a living laboratory for studying geological processes in real time. In 2016, researchers from various parts of the world, including the Center for Astrobiology in Madrid, the University of Bologna, and McGill University, ventured to Dallol with a clear objective: to study these extreme microorganisms that manage to survive where most living beings would never dare to tread. From hot springs to salt lakes, they live where the environment is most hostile, which could give us precious clues about life on other planets. And this is where NASA comes in. The American Space Agency is keeping a close eye on these microorganisms because they could reveal secrets about life on other planets. Extremorphals, as they are called, offer clues as to how life could exist in extreme environments, such as Mars or even the moons of Jupiter. Instead of just looking for liquid water, perhaps the key is to look for life forms that can survive by breathing methane or feeding on chemical substances in hostile conditions, very different from what we know on Earth. In other words, Dallol, with its extreme heat and acidity, is much more than a geological curiosity. It's a window into the limits of life, on Earth and perhaps on other worlds. And so we come to the end of another fascinating journey, this time through the bello mundo of the Afar Triangle, and with Dallol and its landscapes that look like they're from another planet. Now we want to know what you think. Leave a comment and share your impressions with us. If you like exploring unique places, full of incredible stories and phenomena that defy everything we know, stay with us. There are many extraordinary things waiting to be discovered. Thank you for following us here. Until next time.